Hey everyone, so you're curious about what's next for Kubernetes. What kind of features are people hoping for down the line?
Yeah, it's always fun to peek into the future, especially when it comes to tech, right?
Well, we found this really cool article, and I think you're going to love it. It's called What's on Your Kubernetes Wish List for 2025? Features the cloud native community wants.
Sounds promising. What kind of stuff are we talking about here?
It's basically a collection of wishes straight from the Kubernetes community,
Mhm.
people who use it day in and day out. And some of these, let me tell you, they hit close to home.
I bet. Like what? Give me a sneak peek.
Okay, how about this? Getting those Kubernetes logs sorted logically by default? I mean, come on, who doesn't want that? Why should we have to jump through hoops just to see the latest events first?
I know, right? It seems like such a small thing, but when you're troubleshooting a complex system like Kubernetes, having those logs in chronological order could save a ton of time and headaches.
For real. Yeah. And it's not like this is some crazy new idea.
Yeah.
Most other logging tools already do this by default, so it feels like Kubernetes is kind of lagging behind on this one.
Yeah, fair point. It'd be great to see them catch up there.
All right, let's switch gears a bit. Have you ever heard of dynamic resource allocation? DRA for short.
DRA rings a bell. Refresh my memory.
Okay, imagine you're trying to, I don't know, split a pizza, right? Your resources are the pizza and your friends are the pods. DRA is like a super smart way to divide those slices so everyone gets exactly what they need, no more, no less.
I like where you're going with this. So instead of just blindly giving each pod a fixed amount of resources.
Exactly. DRA would make it way more efficient. And if you think about GPU-heavy tasks like machine learning, it could be a game changer.
Hmm.
Better sharing, more efficient workloads, the whole shebang.
That's a really compelling use case, especially with how popular machine learning is becoming.
Now, this next one's for all you database folks out there. StatefulSet volume resizing. Ever had to resize a database in Kubernetes?
Don't get me started. What a pain.
Right. It's like you're stuck in the Stone Age. Destroy and recreate, destroy and recreate. Who has time for that?
The whole process is clunky and error-prone. If Kubernetes let us resize those volumes dynamically, on the fly, without all the drama, man, that would be a dream come true.
Agreed. And speaking of dreams, what if you could move those pods around without any downtime? Like zero interruptions.
You're talking about graceful node draining for single replica sets? Yeah, that's definitely high on the wish list, especially for mission-critical apps.
Right, because those single replica pods, they're like the heart of your application. But if one goes down, even for a second, it can cause a ripple effect.
Exactly. What we need is a way for Kubernetes to ensure a smooth transition, even for those single replica scenarios. Like, have a backup ready to go before the original pod gets evicted.
Think of it like a safety net. Keeps everything running smoothly, even when you're doing maintenance on your nodes.
That would be incredible. And speaking of things that would be incredible, how about this real-time volume usage metrics?
Right. It's like you want to check your phone's storage, but you can't see how much space you have left.
Exactly. It just seems so basic.
Yeah.
Why do we have to rely on external tools or put up with delayed metrics for our persistent volumes?
Seriously. Having that real-time data right there in Kubernetes would help avoid so many storage-related headaches.
Totally. And wouldn't you love to just move a running pod from one node to another with no downtime?
You're talking about live migration of pods right now. That's what I call a game changer.
I know, it sounds almost too good to be true, but there are tools out there that show it's at least possible.
You mean like CRIU? I read a little about that.
Exactly. CRIU lets you essentially take a snapshot of the pod's state and then restore it on a different node.
That is so cool. It's like pausing a video game and then resuming it on a different console.
That's a perfect analogy. And the best part is it works at the process level, so it doesn't matter what container runtime or even operating system you're using.
Okay, sign me up.
Uh,
That's definitely going on my wish list.
All right, let's talk about layer 7 routing. This one's all about traffic control for your microservices, taking things to the next level.
Okay, so we're not just talking about basic HTTP routing anymore.
Exactly. With layer 7 routing, you can look at things like the HTTP headers, cookies, you name it. It's about making smarter decisions about where to send traffic based on what's actually inside the data.
It's like instead of just looking at a car's license plate, you can actually see who's driving it and where they're going.
You got it. Imagine an e-commerce site being able to route traffic for specific product categories to dedicated servers,
Right.
or automatically directing traffic from European users to a server in Europe.
Oh, that's a cool idea. So much more efficient. And you know what else would be super helpful?
What's that?
A way to simplify GPU workload management in Kubernetes.
Yeah.
especially for folks who aren't running like super high-end setups.
I hear you. GPUs and Kubernetes can be a bit of a headache sometimes.
Right. What we need are easier, safer ways to allocate those GPU resources.
Absolutely. Make it more accessible for everyone, not just the experts with fancy hardware.
Totally. And speaking of things that could be easier, what if we could just mount those PVCs into running pods? On the fly, no restarts needed.
Mount PVCs into running pods, that would be a game changer. No more restarting everything just to add some extra storage.
Right. It's like, oh, I need more space for my database. Guess I'll just bring the whole thing down for a while.
Exactly. It just doesn't make sense.
Okay. And for our final wish,
Yeah.
something I think everyone can get behind. Long-term support releases.
LTS. Oh, yeah. Kubernetes moves so fast, sometimes it feels like you're on a treadmill just trying to keep up.
Right. Especially in production environments where stability is key.
LTS releases would give folks the peace of mind to stick with a stable version for a longer period without having to worry about constant upgrades and potential compatibility issues.
It's like having that safety net of knowing that you're covered no matter what. So yeah, I think that about covers it. Quite the wish list, huh?
For sure. Some really interesting ideas in there. It's really cool to see what the community is thinking about and what they're hoping for in the future. Welcome back, everyone. So, ready to get a little bit more technical.
Oh, absolutely. I'm always up for a challenge.
Well, let's dive back into that live pod migration thing. Remember we were talking about CRIU?
Yeah, the tool that lets you, like, freeze a running application and move it to a different machine.
Exactly. That's going to be a pretty crucial piece of the puzzle if this live pod migration idea ever becomes a reality in Kubernetes.
I can see that.
Yeah.
But how realistic is it? I mean, freezing and moving a whole running pod,
Yeah.
that sounds like a logistical nightmare.
Yeah, it's definitely not simple. We're talking about coordinating the entire process across multiple nodes, keeping the data consistent, managing all the network connections.
And then there's the whole storage dependency thing.
Right, gonna handle that too. But imagine being able to, say, upgrade your cluster's hardware without any downtime for your critical applications.
That would be amazing.
Yeah.
But it still sounds super complex.
It is. But the fact that tools like CRIU already exist, it kind of gives you hope, right?
Okay, yeah, I see what you mean. It's not completely out of the realm of possibility.
Exactly. So what else caught your eye on the wish list?
Well, that dynamic resource allocation thing sounded pretty interesting. That whole pizza analogy.
Ah, yes, DRA. All about making sure those resources are divided up in the most efficient way possible.
Right, because right now it feels like you're often stuck with these fixed allocations, especially when it comes to things like GPUs.
Oh, yeah. You might end up dedicating a whole GPU to a pod, even if it doesn't need all that power. What a waste.
Exactly. And it limits what you can do. So how would this DRA actually work, like in practice?
Well, there are a few different techniques they could use. One is time slicing, where multiple pods share a GPU by taking turns.
Oh, interesting. Like a rotation.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And then there's partitioning, where you divide the GPU's memory and compute cores into separate spaces.
Ah, so it's kind of like creating virtual machines within the GPU.
Yep, that's a good way to think about it.
That's pretty slick.
Yeah.
And it would make things so much more efficient, right?
Absolutely. Especially for things like AI and ML workloads, or even graphics-intensive applications.
Okay, what about layer 7 routing? We talked about how it's all about like looking deeper into the traffic.
All right. With layer 7 routing, you can implement rules like send all requests for this specific product to those pods over there, or route traffic from European users to our European server.
Ah, so it's about adding that extra layer of intelligence to your traffic management.
Exactly. But to actually build that intelligence into Kubernetes, that's going to require a more advanced network stack,
Yeah, that makes sense. But how would they actually do that?
Well, we might see extensions to existing APIs like Ingress, or maybe even new technologies like Service Mesh, which are specifically designed for managing microservice communication.
So it sounds like layer 7 routing is going to require some pretty big changes to Kubernetes architecture.
It would involve some evolution, yeah, but I think the potential benefits are huge.
Okay, I'm starting to see the possibilities here. It sounds like the future of Kubernetes is going to be pretty wild.
Oh, for sure. It's inspiring to see how the community is always pushing the boundaries of what's possible.
And speaking of the community, we want to hear from you. What features are you most excited about? What challenges are you facing in your own Kubernetes journey?
We'll be right back to wrap things up and hear your thoughts, so don't go anywhere.
Well, we've covered a lot of ground today, huh?
Yeah.
I mean, from those simple things like sorted event logs to the really out there stuff like live pod migration. It's clear that the Kubernetes community, they've got big plans for the future.
Yeah, it's been really cool to dive into these features and think about, what Kubernetes could look like in a few years. And I think it's awesome that these ideas are coming straight from the people who are actually using Kubernetes every day.
Yeah, that's what I love about the Kubernetes community. It's all about listening to the users, right?
Yeah.
But now, let's turn the tables a bit. We want to hear from you, the listener. What features are you most excited about?
Right. What really caught your attention? Anything on that wish list that got you thinking, finally, a solution to my problem?
Or maybe you're facing a challenge right now in your own Kubernetes journey, and one of these features could be the answer. We'd love to hear your thoughts.
Because at the end of the day, the future of Kubernetes is in the hands of the people who use it. So keep dreaming big, keep innovating, and keep pushing the boundaries of what's possible with this incredible platform.
And hey, who knows? Maybe your wish will be on the Kubernetes wish list for 2030. Until next time, happy Kubernetesing.